The moving truck roared away, leaving me stranded on a gravel driveway with a beat-up rucksack slung over my shoulder and a couple of cardboard boxes at my feet. I was 20, staring at this two-story house in some cookie-cutter American suburb. Think white picket fences and perfectly mowed lawns. My mom had just tied the knot with this guy she'd been dating for a year, and boom, here I was, about to bunk with his son, my new stepbrother. He was 22, fresh off college, and when he shuffled out to grab a box, he barely looked at me. Just a quick hey before disappearing back inside. That first week? Total awkward city. I'd bolt to my room after dinner, crank up my podcasts, and unpack like it was a race. He'd vanish too, either tinkering with his car in the garage or glued to his laptop downstairs. But then I started noticing stuff. Him quietly stacking dishes in the sink, or leaving the porch light on when I'd roll in late from a walk. Small things, you know? Made me wonder if he wasn't such a stranger after all. Rain was hammering the roof one Saturday, trapping me inside with nowhere to go. I was 20, sprawled on the couch with my laptop, scrolling job listings, barista gigs, retail, anything to keep me busy in this new zip code. That's when he wandered in, 22 and still in sweats, clutching a steaming mug of coffee. He glanced at my screen and asked what I was hunting for. "Just something part-time," I said, shrugging. He nodded, then mentioned he'd ditched a coffee shop job because it bored him to death. Next thing I know, we're swapping stories. Him fixing up old cars, me stitching jackets from thrift store finds. He pulled out his phone and showed me a pic of this beat-up pickup he'd resurrected last summer, all proud-like. I couldn't help but grin. The guy had a spark when he talked shop. After that, we stopped dodging each other so much. He'd toss out a, "wanna watch something," while flipping through Netflix, or I'd catch him brewing an extra cup of joe when I was around. It wasn't instant BFF stuff, but I started digging his vibe. Quiet? Sure, but real. One night, the house went quiet. Parents crashed early, leaving me and him downstairs with the hum of the fridge as our soundtrack. I was 20, sipping soda at the kitchen counter. He was 22, sprawled on the couch with a bowl of popcorn. We started talking. Real stuff this time. I spilled how tough it was leaving my old crew and college behind. Felt like I'd lost my footing. He got it, said he'd been drifting since graduation, unsure what's next. "You ever feel like you're just faking it?" he asked, staring at the ceiling. I nodded. Same vibe. Nights like that became our thing. Movies, snacks, and unloading whatever was on our minds. He'd show me pics of sunsets he'd snapped on road trips. I'd sketch outfit ideas and toss them his way for a thumbs up. Little habits crept in. I'd leave him cookies from my baking sprees. He'd slide a water bottle over when I was grinding late. It hit me one evening, mid-laugh at some dumb comedy. This guy got me, no filter needed. Rain tapped the window one fall evening while I was 20, knee-deep in unpacked boxes in my room. He was 22, cross-legged on the floor, helping me sort through old sweaters and junk. I was yakking about this ratty jacket I'd worn to death in high school when I caught him staring. Not casual, but intense. He broke the silence, asking if I ever thought our setup was weird, living like this, so close yet not really family. Sometimes, I admitted, heart thumping. The air got thick, and he slid closer. Then it just happened. We froze, quick and clumsy, like we didn't mean to but did anyway, caught in that unspoken pull. We pulled back fast, eyes wide, neither of us saying a word. The room felt smaller, the rain louder. I didn't know what to make of it. Part of me buzzed, part of me freaked. He rubbed his neck, muttered something about getting water, and bailed. I sat there replaying it, wondering what the heck I'd just stepped into. Things got messy after that night. I was 20, still reeling, and he was 22, acting like nothing happened, pouring cereal at breakfast, joking with our folks. But I'd catch him looking my way, or our hands would brush, grabbing the remote, and it'd hit me all over again. We'd crossed a line. For days, we danced around it, keeping up the act. Small talk about the weather, Netflix pics, whatever. Then one morning, I walked in from grabbing coffee down the street, and he was waiting in the kitchen, arms crossed. "We gotta talk," he said, voice low. My stomach dropped. He didn't beat around the bush, said he liked me more than he should, but it'd mess everything up if we let it roll. Our parents, this house, it's too much, he added, looking torn, like a brother stuck on keeping things steady. I opened my mouth to argue, but he cut me off with a shake of his head. Next thing I knew, he'd landed a gig 2 states over, some mechanic job he'd been eyeing. A week later, I watched him toss duffels into his pickup, engine rumbling as he hugged his dad goodbye. I stood by the window, gut twisting, thinking he'd at least wave. He didn't. The truck peeled out and the house went dead quiet. I figured that was it. Game over, back to square one. But then, 2 months later, a package showed up. No note, just my name scrawled on it. Inside, a photo he'd taken. A sunset over a dusty road, framed simple and clean. Tucked behind it was one of my old sketches, the jacket design I'd shown him that night. I froze, staring at it, a grin creeping up. He'd kept it. After all that, he'd held on, and somehow, that hit harder than him staying ever could have. This is an artistic and fictional creation intended for both entertainment and educational purposes. Any resemblance to actual people or events is purely coincidental. Some scenes and dialogues in the video are part of a dramatized performance and incorporate elements of grotesque, satire, and exaggeration. The creator stands against discrimination, violence, and hatred. This channel fully complies with YouTube's policies and does not infringe upon copyright laws.
Bye.